The doctrine of the Imperium categorizes the Astartes exclusively as Loyalists or Heretics. Yet, field reports reveal anomalies. Several chapters holding the status of Excommunicate Traitoris persist in their war against Xenos and the forces of chaos, remaining, in effect, loyal to humanity. The purpose of this report is to analyze 5 such formations with irregular loyalty protocols. Note, these records are apocryphal and do not exist within the official archives of Terra. Beginning material analysis. Analysis of the first subject reveals a paradoxical deviation within the Salamanders' gene seed. The sons of Vulcan are renowned for their compassion toward the Imperium citizenry, yet in the chapter formerly known as the Flame Dragons, this trait mutated into a critical psychological and physiological defect. Archive records indicate that every Astartes of this brotherhood suffered a severe psychosomatic reaction, physical pain synchronized with the suffering of civilians in the combat zone. This empathic link became the catalyst for their fall, as their inability to accept the brutal methods of an Imperium where human life is often merely currency led to an irrevocable ideological schism. The turning point occurred during the 8th Black Crusade in Segmentum Obscurus, while operating under Inquisitor Elena Ruckel. The chapter command realized the Inquisition's tactics were resulting in the unjustified slaughter of millions of loyal subjects, a situation exacerbated by a direct collision with the World Eaters Legion led by Karn the Betrayer. In that slaughter, Chapter Master Varric was slain, his skull claimed as a trophy by the Champion of Khorne. The final severance from the Imperium came 2 millennia later while pursuing the Word-bearer's Dark Apostle Vol to a world where the population had been all but extinguished in chaos rituals. Chief Librarian Kitos Pirogo, struck by the massive psychic backlash of millions of dying souls, rewrote the chapter's doctrine, and the Flame Dragons retreated into the Warp, where they were deemed lost for 1,000 standard years. They have now returned to real space as the Emulators, their heraldry radically altered and armor inscribed with sorceress runes, yet their objectives remain loyalist. Led by Pirogo, they preach the cult of the new Prometheus, a doctrine dedicated to the defense of mankind while utterly rejecting the administrative authority of the Imperium. Though classified as traitors by the Ordo Malus and Ordo Hereticus, the Emulators actively deploy melta weaponry and flamers, supported by vast cohorts of cultists drawn from the civilian populace. Unlike the thralls of the Dark Gods, however, these auxiliaries serve voluntarily, viewing the Astartes as their only shield against the galaxy's horrors. Theological analysis remains complex. Formally, they utilize the methods of chaos undivided, yet they wield them solely to preserve the human population. The next subject of analysis is the chapter known as the Dust Lords. Prior to their excommunication, this formation was characterized by an impeccable reputation and the highly effective application of Raven Guard tactics, including stealth infiltration and the exploitation of indigenous fauna for surface navigation. The crisis of loyalty emerged in the 41st millennium within the Ghoul Stars region. A planetary outpost ceased communication, transmitting a single chilling message: all is dust. Imperial Command, suspecting activity by the Thousand Suns Legion, dispatched the Dust Lords to conduct reconnaissance. Upon arrival at the objective, chapter forces discovered the decimated remains of the planetary defense forces and a group of surviving civilians. Upon contact with the Astartes, the survivors immediately opened fire with lethal intent. In response to this aggression, 2nd Company Captain Elias Prahl classified the civilians as heretics and sanctioned a complete cleansing of the perimeter. A subsequent inspection of the incident site revealed the true cause of the aggression: a Vox transmitter cyclically broadcasting a threat of total annihilation. Voice analysis confirmed that the message had been recorded by Captain Prahl himself. Technical analysis further demonstrated that the signal possessed a temporal nature and was being broadcast from the future. Based on the report regarding the genocide of the civilian population and suspicions of warp time manipulation, the chapter was declared traitor. Their homeworld was subjected to exterminatus by the forces of the Executor chapter, the Rhinos. The fortress monastery was obliterated. However, during the purge, no traces of chaos corruption were detected. Currently, the remnants of the Dust Lords are based upon a space hulk drifting within the warp. The object is subject to severe temporal anomalies. Intelligence indicates the possibility of temporal duplication of personnel. The simultaneous existence of multiple copies of Captain Elias Prahl has been recorded. The chapter continues combat operations formally without defecting to the ruinous powers. The Frost Ghosts chapter is a spawn of the 21st founding, notorious for its high mutation rates. The Astartes genetic defect manifests as a critical reduction in body temperature and the accumulation of cryogenic compounds within the respiratory system. This pathology is utilized as a biological weapon in close quarters, yet renders personnel vulnerable to thermal exposure. Due to prolonged isolation, the chapter's dogmas shifted toward the worship of an unidentified warp entity designated Heim. Theological analysis yields no definitive answer regarding the entity's nature. It is hypothesized to be a parasitic warp form that endows its followers with anomalous vitality. The catalyst for the crisis was the return of Primarch Robote Guilliman. Fearing imminent judgment from their genetic progenitor, Rogal Dorn, a faction under the command of Captain Ericas initiated a reversion to Imperial protocols. The opposing side was led by Captain Marcus, who had become the avatar of Heim. Following the resulting internecine conflict, the Loyalists, deprived of the warp entity's support, were forced to retreat. Currently, Erika's faction conducts a penitent crusade in an attempt to restore the status quo. Marcus's faction, renamed the Heirs of Heim, has occupied the drifting hulk of the Eldar craft world, Alenstar, and is classified as a heretical formation. The fourth subject of analysis represents a unique case of ideological schism. The chapter, known as the Honest Hundred, demonstrates fanatical devotion to the Emperor personally, while maintaining absolute hostility toward the Administratum and the Inquisition. Their declared objective is the dismantling of the High Lords of Terra, whose authority they deem a usurpation. The chapter's activity was first recorded in the Virgo sector, in the vicinity of the former base of the annihilated Hellbirds chapter. Following an unprovoked attack on an Imperial Navy cruiser, the Honest Hundred occupied the world of Tartus I. In 358.M41, forces of the Imperial Guard, comprising 5 line regiments and 1 siege regiment, attempted to reclaim the planet. During the operation, Loyalist forces breached the defensive line, only to be subject to a counterattack. 150 Astartes of the Honest Hundred executed a drop-pod assault into the rear of the advancing troops. Tactical analysis of the engagement revealed a strict selectivity in target acquisition. Only officer cadres, the commissariat, and units loyal to the Inquisition were subject to extermination. Captured weaponry was subsequently transferred to the planetary defense forces to facilitate further resistance against Imperial reclamation fleets. The chapter is fleet-based, utilizing a mobile fortress monastery, which significantly complicates liquidation efforts. Recruitment is conducted on the world of Vectus Prime via survival trials. Neophytes who pass selection receive the tattoo, "We do not lie," and swear an oath of fealty to the Emperor. Despite their heretical status, the local populations of several worlds in Segmentum Obscurus provide support to the chapter, perceiving their actions as liberation, creating a severe threat to regional stability. The final subject of this analysis illustrates the pathological secrecy inherent to the gene line of Lion L. Johnson. The Manticores chapter, as part of the Unforgiven, prioritized the hunt for the fallen above direct orders from the Imperium, a choice that ultimately led to their excommunication. The precipitating incident occurred at the close of the 41st millennium on the ice world of Dlor. Upon receiving intelligence regarding the presence of the subject Cypher, the first company, Deathwing, executed a combat drop. Within the operational zone, chapter forces encountered a joint task force comprising the Ordo Heretics, Ordo Xenos, and the Death Watch. To avoid compromising the secret of the Fallen, the Manticores severed contact and withdrew from the combat zone without explanation. The chapter's actions were interpreted by the Inquisition as treason and cowardice. Despite the clandestine intervention of senior Dark Angels officers, the chapter was officially declared heretical. Currently, the Manticores are based upon the Starfort Relentless Fury. The chapter structure stands in violation of the Codex Astartes, with its strength expanded to 15 companies. Their primary objective remains the pursuit of the fallen angels in an attempt to atone for their sins before the Emperor. The effectiveness of their operations is corroborated by the events of 578.M41 during the siege of Fortress Vorog. The Manticores identified the leaders of a chaos uprising as fallen. In a joint operation with the Black Knights, Ravenwing, the chapter captured and transferred the prisoners, allowing their allies to complete the purge. This case demonstrates a unique paradox: a chapter willing to accept the brand of the traitor to preserve the secret of their legion's loyalty.